Hi, this is StrategyCast, where smart marketers and bold business thinkers share the plays behind brand breakthroughs. I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications. If you've ever wondered what separates marketers who burn out from those who build influence across decades, today's episode is for you. I'm joined by Jeannie Zaemes, a marketing leader who's not only evolved with the times, but has repeatedly led the change, driving demand, building brand, and guiding growth through nearly every shift the B2B marketing world has thrown her way. Together, we reflect on the lessons of staying relevant, avoiding career ruts, and embracing change from the fax machine era to AI-driven campaigns. Whether you're just getting started or looking to future-proof your expertise, Jeannie's career-spanning insights will help you think the long game and lead smarter.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to the show, my friend Jeannie.
Oh, Lori, I am so excited to be here. I just can't even tell you. I've been looking forward to this ever since we first talked about it.
Well, I know, and who knew, like 3 decades ago, that we would actually be speaking on a podcast instead of a one-on-one meeting or at a trade show?
Completely. I don't even think podcasts had been, wasn't even invented.
No. I think it was a figment of people's imagination.
Yes.
Or like those very innovative thought leaders for the future may have had the idea in their hip pocket, but they weren't definitely going to bring it up. Oh my goodness. Before we dive into everything, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Absolutely. So I have been in marketing pretty much since I walked out of college.
You and I both.
Yeah, I mean, and Lori and I literally used to attend the Business Marketing Association meetings together. I ended up being president of the organization. You were probably a board member as well.
Yeah.
And we grew up with that.
Yeah, we did.
And during that time, I've been in B2B the entire time. I started as a little marketing coordinator, ended up moving up that path to marketing manager and director and senior director and VP. And I am now just getting ready to start a new position as SVP of marketing for VanillaSoft. And I will be part of the executive leadership team and really rebuilding a marketing team and building a function within that organization. And I'm bringing everything I've learned the entire way to this role. And I'm so excited to be working with this new group.
Well, I tell you, they are so lucky to have you. Everyone along the way has been incredibly lucky to have you. You know how to build teams and you know how to build marketing outcomes. And those two things definitely do stand the test of time with the reputation you've got. Take us back. What was marketing like when you were starting out, and what's been the biggest change since then?
So one of the most interesting things that I think I've seen, and it's something that I think all of us still struggle with as marketers, marketing was sort of viewed as the icing on the cake way back in the day. We didn't track metrics. We didn't know what was producing anything. We weren't doing anything like digital marketing. Everything was very slow and more methodical, and it was very much just driven by sales. And I've always been on the client side, always been on the B2B side. We would go out and do these things, but we weren't really sure how to impact what we were doing.
Right.
In fact, I still remember there was a woman who spoke at a BMA meeting, and she was, I want to say, SVP of marketing for Motorola. And her presentation was all about how do you attach asset values to what you do?
Right.
And I was probably late 20s, maybe 30 at the most. And I remember listening to her thinking, I'm working on a budget. She is going to change the way I'm doing what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Right.
I need to start thinking, how do I make this work? And I am now in the process. And one of the things that I always talk to my team about is I think I'm pretty creative and I think I'm a very good communicator, but the data, that is what makes me know Is this working? Is this not working? That's the science behind the scenes. And if you don't have that, you won't have the success. So that, in my mind, is kind of one of the big things that has really changed is we have to be data scientists. We have to be.
It's interesting. If we think back to the fundamentals of a non-digital world, so much is still true regarding how we approach marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you reflect on that for us for a moment?
Sure. I mean, I have always used the definition of when someone says, what's your vision or what's your goal? My goal is to communicate a message to a targeted audience and ask for a call to action.
Right.
That's it. And
Yeah.
I do that. I did that before when I used to do direct mail pieces. And I now do that when I'm doing digital ads and SEO and paid search. I'm doing the same thing. If I don't have that targeted audience, clearly I'm talking to the wrong people.
I remember back when this thing called the World Wide Web and this execution of email was first talked about. Our agency, Avocet, had a seminar where we invited marketing leaders, you may have been there, to come and learn about these two new tools. And we had about 150 very high-level marketing leaders in the room. And we taught them about the World Wide Web. We taught them that it would be an incredible online brochure for them. We taught them that email would be a new way of communicating via computer instead of, not instead of, but in conjunction with direct mail and calling and so on and so forth. And about at the time, 90% of people, marketers in the room, did not believe that email would become a viable communication tool. They also looked at this thing called the World Wide Web truly as an online brochure. Sales would never have taken place on it. Look at where we are today.
Oh, completely. And I've got a story at the same time. So I was with an organization, very large organization. I don't know if it's okay to say names because they've gone through several rebrands. It was IHS.
Right.
It was my very first job out of college. I had started there as a little marketing coordinator. This thing called the World Wide Web had come out. And my husband is a total computer geek. And we used to order, airline tickets using the World Wide Web. And I had taken an HTML class. And we didn't have a website for this very large, I think at the time, probably $300 million company. So I decided I was going to build one.
I love it.
Building HTML in Notes. Our CEO found out that I was doing this. He had kids my age. And I remember him having this kind of paternal conversation with me about, yeah, my kids tell me about this all the time. I think it's a fad. Do not spend more than an hour or two a week messing around with it. And I think back and I'm like, oh my goodness, that is now the core of everything we do.
It is. And if let's talk about demand gen and brand and product and communications for a minute here. I mean, they all work hand in hand. And how has that versatility? I mean, you're one of those individuals that just rolls up your sleeves and you dive in. That's how you and I both became very. I had an incredible mentor who was my father, of course, but that's just getting, down and dirty. That's how we, right? But how has that versatility in all those different aspects of marketing helped you, with this very, very long career that you now have?
Absolutely. It's interesting. And again, I mentioned that I'm at a very new position. It was funny as I was interviewing because they really, and for those kinds of senior roles, you don't want just a digital person or you don't just want a branding person. You want someone who really understands everything that effective communications has to bring to an organization and helping them achieve their revenue goals and their pipeline goals. And it's all of those things. It's demand gen, it's product marketing, it's branding, it's the messaging you put together. None of those can be siloed. And by having experience and having done all of those things, I can provide leadership and direction on all of those, and I can effectively collaborate with sales or product or the technical team. And having that breadth of career has really helped me. I almost bristled a little bit when I was interviewing for this new position, and somebody said, you're kind of a marketing generalist. I was like, I don't like to think about it that way because that seems so shallow. It's that depth. And, I think that's something that current marketers, because I have definitely seen marketers more become, oh, that's a digital person.
Yep.
Or that's an events person. And I think today's marketers, don't be afraid to learn all of it. And even if you love digital, you will be able to use that as you're going to an event and use those same skills to really make everything that you do better,
I completely agree. It's interesting, had we known what we know today, right? And I take a look at a lot of our clientele that we said, yes, we're going to take on this project. It's going to be fabulous, so on and so forth. And had I known that the awareness was as weak as it was when we said yes to the project, that's the number one thing that I would say was one of the big lessons for us and the agency was, launching a brand mid-funnel without any kind of awareness, budgeting. But one of the things that I really reflect on in my almost 4-decade career here is how to recognize when awareness is so low or not existent for a brand that mid-funnel marketing is going to be very, very difficult to succeed with. And
Yes.
we now are saying no to companies that don't invest in brand because it's so darn important for the overall health of the brand and, sales and marketing and everything in between. Reflect on that, if you would, for a minute as well. And how have you had those conversations with boards that said, no, we've got to start here?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually had some pretty interesting conversations as I was interviewing for this position that I'm starting on. We even with our private equity firm, and we were talking about brand and how important that is. And it's so much more than I think people always just assume it's the logo. And even still, it's the logo and the look of the website. It's not. It's the promise you make to your customer. We don't own our brand, our customer owns our brand. We can say we are XYZ, and if the customer doesn't see you as XYZ, you're not.
Yeah.
And that is where brand has to be so deeply embedded in the fiber of every customer-facing employee at the organization. And marketing can bring that to play. And we help people understand that's actually what the brand is. And this is how you create that awareness. And you think about really strong brands whose strength of brand has come because the service people are great with the customers,
Right.
or the product is so strong. And then the visuals and the communication and everything that marketing does supports that. And you're right, it is so difficult to come to an organization that doesn't have a strong brand because you've got to immediately build that. And it's also hard and I've had this happen once or twice in my career where we didn't have strong awareness and we didn't have strong brand. But at the same time, it's hard to track specific pipeline back to brand. You always want to track that back to demand gen, but the strong brand absolutely feeds what is the demand gen that is going to feed the pipe. And without it,
Yeah.
it's just not going to be as effective.
Well, and back to what you said a moment ago about customer service, brand is what your customer says about you. Now,
Yep.
hopefully, everything that we do leads them to say what ultimately we want them to be feeling and that behavior, that action. But if you have negative customer service or a negative product delivery or you don't have the selection that someone's looking for, that impacts all of that work that marketing has done, which can really destroy the marketing
Oh,
lead.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah. So what have you done? This is actually even a hard question for me to answer. But what have you done deliberately or instinctively to stay relevant over time?
Absolutely. I think it's one of those things. And as different communication technologies come about, marketing's job is to always make sure that you know how to communicate using those techniques.
Right.
Always. And I think a big piece of it is always, always being curious. And I am as curious today as I was 30 years ago. And now I'm curious about AI. And I've even done a class for some of my direct reports on how do you do AEO and GEO and what are the simple things that we can do to our website to help the large language models start to find us. And I find that so fascinating. And I think that the people on my team see wow, okay, she's not 22, she's not
But she's cool.
cool, and she understands what is
Yeah.
important about this. And so I think there's just that strong belief in communications and the curiosity about what always makes it better.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, you spoke to this earlier, that our overall mission is still the same, or our vision of communicating to a targeted audience and asking for a call to action, whether that happens through a text message or through an AI driven chat GPT message, or whether it happened back in the day from a bingo card in a magazine, you know, how
It's
people will remember that.
oh yeah, it's so interesting if you think about change and the amount of change that industries have encountered over the
Yeah.
last many decades. I mean, take a look at automobile.
Oh, yeah.
All you do is hook your car up to a platform, and they know precisely what's going on with it. I mean, it's very,
Yeah.
very difficult than the cylinder or 8-cylinder engines that were built.
Mhm.
Marketing is no different. However, I do believe this. I do believe that our industry has changed way more than most industries.
Yes.
And adapting to that is how we have stood the test of time.
Oh, completely.
Take
It's
a
so
look
funny. Yeah.
at the dot-com boom
Oh,
and
yeah.
how many agencies went out of business because they didn't adapt the tech. Same thing happened with digital, or
Yeah.
or or they over adapted and lost the basics and couldn't, answer the tough questions because
Yeah.
a bunch of technical gurus who had nothing to do with a crisis moment.
Yeah.
They couldn't get to it.
It's too funny. So my current organization went through some rebranding initiatives. And having been in this world for a long time, I remember when every business decided we needed to have .com in our name,
Yeah,
and then they didn't. And then everybody wanted to have cloud in their name. And then it became pretty passé. And
right.
then the big thing over the last year has been all about AI and agentic. And it's like, don't hang your hat on something that is a technology that is 99% going to change.
Yeah,
I remember the first conference I was at a CX conference for Forrester. And, certainly thought leaders, and the big buzzword was AI. And this was probably 4 years ago. And one of the things with marketing, I think when these new technologies come out, people always assume, oh, marketers are going to lose their jobs. And I had so many people say, oh, are you worried about losing your job? And I'm like, of course not. People said the same thing to me when Google came out, and I didn't lose my job. I just learned about Google. It's the same thing. I'm learning how to use AI. The first time I used AI or Chat GPT to quickly write a press release that then I edited, I was like, wow, that's kind
yeah.
of weird. I could have done that myself, but then it's like, actually, it's a tool and it's pretty good, and I got it done and it's out, you know?
And the
So,
thing I have to add about that is the input of the information that you put into that original prompt for the
mhm,
press release is what was the most important part of the
yes,
output. And that is where the human element, the strategic thinking is still so important when it comes to utilizing tools like AI.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it exactly, and you hit on it. We haven't really talked about strategy. Developing communication strategy and marketing strategy for an organization has not changed that much, I don't think, over the years. That was never about, we've got to do more email. It's
Yeah.
always been, we're launching this product, we're targeting this new audience, we're expanding our offering in our existing base. What is the strategy there? And then it becomes marketing's job to understand, how do I communicate with that audience and ask for a call to action? And whether they're responding, by text message or whatever that is. I mean, I remember, and I know we've got kids relatively close to the same age. I remember when my son got accepted to college, and it always used to be, the joke was, oh, you get the fat envelope and that means you've been accepted. He got a text message at school, and he called me from school saying he'd been accepted.
Wow.
And I was like, that's so cool that he didn't even get an email, because people his
Yeah.
age don't read emails. At the time, they read texts.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I mean, that tech change to me is absolutely amazing, and it's all about how we adapt to it and,
Yes.
help us stand the test of time. Do you recall a time where you felt that you were losing that marketing mojo?
Um, there was one point where I came pretty close,
Yeah.
and it was fairly recent. It was probably 10 years ago. And I was working for a company that was kind of a startup. And it just, I got almost sort of felt like I was, when it was at the very beginning of the pandemic. And I was at a director level and I sort of felt like I was clocking it in, and I'm very much an extrovert and I hadn't been in the office, and sort of on a whim, I applied for 5 jobs. And I got interviews at 3 of them and offers from 2 of them. And I took a job and I absolutely got my passion back for what I do. And I remember having a conversation with my son at the time, who is now an oncologist. So he's a specialist. He was getting ready to interview for fellowships and had kind of reached that point where he was like, Mom, I'm tired of not making any money. I'm tired of continuing to go to school. Maybe I just choose a path of being a hospitalist. And hospitalists are amazing. I knew that was not what he was passionate about. So
Right.
we sat there at dinner one night and I said, when you're my age, you still want to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
I am now passionate about what I do again. And I said,
I
what
love
makes you passionate? And he said, actually helping really, really sick people to get well. And so it was like, okay, take this lesson from my marketing career to focus on what makes you passionate. And if you're not getting it somewhere, it's not the end of the world to change a job. And it doesn't mean that it's not a bad job. It just means maybe it was not fueling your passion
Yeah.
and you move on. I mean, and I could not be more excited about my new role, and
Well, it's gonna be fantastic. It sounds like that was a cultural issue as
yeah,
well with that other company. I love it when I speak to people on the show, and it's not too often, but they know who my father was and what an incredible human being he was. And, he taught me so much. And the big argument that we had, in his later years was who taught who more. It's very, very sweet argument. But I remember him saying to me very, very early on, and think about how hard this must have been for a father who's telling his daughter this, who he wants to have a very, very long career with and build a company. But he told me very, very early on, the day you stop enjoying what you're doing is the day you need to do something else.
yes,
And thank God, just thank God. I can probably count, 5 times over my career where I was like, "Oh my gosh, is this really for me?" And it wasn't the love of marketing. It was just, it was a huge recession, or it was 9/11 when,
yeah,
kind of our clients went dark overnight, or it was COVID when 90% of our business went dark overnight.
yeah,
Just those super, super scary time periods is where I really panicked and said, "Why in the world did I choose agency life?"
yeah. Exactly. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, for where I'm at in this point, I mean, and I'm thrilled about my new position and I have no plans to retire anytime soon.
Right.
However, when I do, what I want to do, and my son actually lives in Boston. And so someday we will move to Boston.
Yeah.
There are colleges and universities there. I cannot think of anything that will make me happier than teaching marketing. And
Exactly.
I mean, and it's kind of like I want to help the new marketers have the same passion and
Yeah.
excitement for what I do that they can do as well. And that I just gave myself chills to think about that. And so I even think about that. That's almost a logical career move for someone who's had a whole career in marketing, you
Yeah.
know? So
Well, Professor Zames, you are going to be absolutely incredible at that one day. For marketers who are listening today that feel stuck in their roles, what advice do you have for them to reset or reframe?
Honestly, think about what you're passionate about. Think about the projects that you've done that have produced what you wanted to produce. The ones that if somebody said, tell me about, actually, this was a great interview question I got once. Tell me about the single project that you are proudest of. And for me, it was a rebranding of a whole company. We were doing business in 92 countries. It was amazing. We did this unbelievable launch at a show in Macau. I was so proud of that because it brought everything together and it just kicked off the company and where the revenue goals were. And I think about that and there's absolutely no reason to not have that same passion about what I do all the time. So, for example, I'm at a big conference right now.
Dreamforce to be,
Dreamforce, yes, the big of the big conferences.
yeah.
And this is the 6th time I've been to it, and certainly I've been to a million conferences. I am as enthused and excited about marketing because we've had such an awesome day today as I was 25 years ago. So I think when people are feeling kind of stuck, think about what drove me to this in the first place. And if I have found myself in a place where the opportunity is not really here anymore, maybe I think about how do I transition this to another area within marketing. I also think, and I, you know, I think there are a lot of resources. I think honestly, Lori and myself would
Yeah.
probably be two of them. If you are someone and you're in your early 30s and you're thinking, not sure this is the right path for me,
Call
reach
us.
out to one of us.
Yeah.
We will be so happy to talk to you,
I love that.
and I think we had that too. I mean, it was kind of funny when we chatted, we kind of rattled off some of the older BMA people and was like, oh yeah, what's going on with them? What's going on then? We looked them up and it was pretty
So
cool.
much
And it was
fun.
like,
Yeah.
I remember I thought that person was amazing and now we're doing amazing,
We're
so
there. We're that
yeah,
person.
totally.
We've talked about the long game. Let's get practical here. What
Mhm.
should today's marketers be doing to future-proof their work?
Honestly, if you don't have that sense of curiosity, get it
Yeah.
and get it and live it and breathe it every single day. And if something comes out and it scares you, figure it out. Most of the technologies that are coming are not that hard. And you will very quickly find that you have more skill at it than you thought you did. I'll be honest, my current role, we did a whole huge AI initiative company wide. And the first one, we gave everybody a challenge and we said, okay, create a piece of art using AI. Okay. I had a huge conference coming up in Wales, of all places.
Yeah.
And I went on Chat GPT and I said, okay, give me a wrap for a partnership in Wales. And it gave me the copy. And then I went to another AI site that asked if I wanted a beat line that was more, uh, you know, Jay-Z or the guy, I think his name was Ice, who kind of had piano lines. And
Yeah.
so I did a rap and it literally took me an hour and a half to create this rap. And
I
it was
love it.
so much fun. And I shared it with people and it was like, this is not a scary thing. If I can do this to create this silly rap, you can use this tool to create other things and play with it. So I think that's something you always have to do is not think, but again, it was communicating.
Yeah.
Um,
But
think
and
about what is the core.
exactly. There's something very interesting here, and we've certainly talked about it in the agency, and that is not using AI as the tool without the human intellect that is so important. And it's
Agreed
really,
so much.
really affecting, I think, the young minds.
Yes,
It's really, those professors teaching at university, how do you, it's like, it actually is very similar to when Photoshop came out.
yeah,
We used to do, the drawings, our creative directors would sketch up the ad concept, and then we would present it that way, and then it would go into design from there.
yeah,
So there's it's no different right now with
exactly.
this right now. We still have to teach
Yeah,
how to think strategically, or the AI is not going to work. What advice
exactly.
do you have for our listeners today regarding if it's them who they are still learning to think strategically, or if you're a manager instilling that in their team?
I mean, I think that there's a key piece of being strategic is positioning and getting your mentors and getting the people that you like to work with. I mean, just this week while I've been at Dreamforce, yesterday myself and two other senior colleagues went out for dinner and we were talking about the strategy of the organization. And it basically came down to here is the basic pipeline spreadsheet that we need to figure out. And here is how our product portfolio needs to lay out. And all of us, I mean, it immediately brought to mind different ideas and how do we do this and how do we bring in these different channels? None of that came from AI. It all came from us talking about it. And
Yeah.
don't lose that interaction with those other people, whether they are more junior or more senior than you are. We all have these amazing perspectives. I believe probably in the next day or two, I will probably kind of dig in and chat GPT and say, hey, do you have a good format to put together a product portfolio? Awesome. That's going to give me a quick tool to put together the thinking that I already had to get this output done. And I
Well,
think, you know,
yeah, we are a very process-oriented agency. We have all sorts of we've got 57 different strategic levers that we pull on to
yeah,
ultimately develop the right strategy for the brand. And we have gone to great lengths to develop custom chats with each one of those strategic
Yes.
pillars. We're not completely done, by the way. There's still so much
Yeah.
to get done, but yes, those ones that we pull on quite often,
Yeah.
because it's the IP that we're putting in there that we've developed with the frameworks,
Yes.
which is really our icing, on top of the cake. And that it is helping so much, but it's still our IP. It's still
Yeah.
our process. It's still our approach.
Yeah. It's interesting because one of the things that kind of makes me a little nuts, and you can spot the Chat GPT style of images from a mile away now. That, Lori, is the
I love
royalty free photography that you and I had when we were
Yeah.
25 years younger. And so just because it came from Chat GPT doesn't make it awesome. You have to make it awesome and you have to make it compelling and meaningful. I mean, I remember back in the day, oh God, we'd gotten some royalty-free photography, and we were at a big trade show. There were two other trade shows that had extremely large panels with our same photo. You see it a lot on LinkedIn where it's this very specific style of illustration. It's like, come on, push it and make it yours and make it your custom Chat GPT and
Yeah.
make it represent your brand. And so that it speaks to you, not, oh, that's just a Chat GPT thing.
Well, and this is another topic for another show, but trademarking everything that is within ChatGPT or anything that is using AI it's not trademarkable right now. It just isn't.
Yeah.
I was at the Macon seminar or conference last fall, and there was a legal panel that specifically talked about this, and they said they were 10 years out to ultimately determining how we could trademark anything that's created with AI. And if you're not using your IP to do it, your own process to do it, it's going to be that much more difficult to make it happen.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like I think for those of us who've chosen careers in marketing, there's this piece that just brings us together. It's always so much fun when you meet a fellow marketer and it's like, Lori's one of my people, and
Yeah.
even though we haven't seen each other in a while, you're
No.
still one of my people.
Yeah.
So don't forget the things that make you one of our people when you go to use these tools to create the pieces that you need to do to get whatever it is that you're targeting to either get the branding done or the awareness done or the demand gen or build the pipeline or design. Don't give up what made you you and makes you good at what you do and the reason that you're a good B2B marketer,
Yeah. Well, you definitely have that nailed. The other thing that is one of your superpowers is building teams. And so when you are bringing in these young teams we've got a mix of them, of all
Yeah.
expertise levels, right? But what are some of the biggest red or green flags that you see marketers on your own teams or in market deploying very early on in their career that they should be learning from?
Absolutely. I think one of the big things, and there's somebody here that I have tons of faith in, and he is someone that has kind of changed careers a little bit. He's an excellent communicator, excellent. And being able to mentor him and help him go and figure out how to use that skill. And he works with our partner team and they love him. And it makes me so proud being able to identify that he was very open to understanding this is what makes me good at what I do. I'm open to doing new things and expanding into career paths that I didn't think I was going to be able to do. I think one of the biggest red flags is, and I'm sure I probably said things when I was 25 years old that I think now, and I look back and I'm like, oh dear God, hopefully nobody remembered that I said that out loud. Don't ever be afraid to learn. That is always a big red flag to me, is when somebody comes in and says, well, I already know this and I don't need to learn this. And again, it kind of ties to that learning and creativity and curiosity. That's kind of a big red flag to me. A big thing when I build teams, the team culture is always very important to me. I want to make sure that every member of my team makes each other better. And I think that's one of those things as you progress in your career. I can't I love to think about every person that they come in. Maybe this is the person on the bench that'll replace me when I retire or when I go somewhere else.
Great mindset.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, you're right. I love building teams.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool too to see when I've hired someone a second time and then
Yep.
the other team members that worked with us before want to come and be part of what was this pretty compelling team where they all learned from each other. You know, that I think is a pretty amazing thing too.
Well, yeah, that is wonderful when you can rehire them because
Yeah,
and they want to be with you too. I mean, that's fantastic.
exactly. I think for people when they're looking for new jobs too, or make sure that you think about it from that same perspective. If you go somewhere, even if this looks on paper like, oh my God, this would be the most amazing job. If it doesn't fit who you are and you don't feel like it's a place where you can be successful and culturally happy to go to work,
Not worth
don't
it.
take it. Don't take it.
At
Yeah,
all. You cannot.
exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I can't believe that we're at the end of our show here. But before we leave, a couple things. So we launched this Better At series this year to help marketers sharpen their everyday skills. And you've given us lots of Better Ats, by the way. But what's one thing that you've learned to be better at that's made a measurable difference in how you lead, work, and show up in your role each day?
Absolutely. So this one will be a funny one. And I've done Myers-Briggs a couple times, and I get very high scores, which I like to think that it means I have a strong personality, not an extreme personality. So take that for what that's worth. I am a ENTP. So I always view the P and the J as like the spreadsheet kind of person or the non-spreadsheet. I am not at all. However, I have learned that to get what I want and to get the dollars that I want and to produce the results and to reflect on those, that has become a core piece of what I do. And it is a piece that if I can present the data and present it compelling and present it like I know what I'm doing, it's funny because it doesn't sound like a real sexy thing, but that has made me so much more confident and better in all of the other communication and creativity and demand gen and all of those other programs to be able to represent that in a pipeline revenue driving business way.
Well, it's the debater in you that probably has really helped you as a marketer because you understand sales so well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best marketers out there really are salespeople at heart.
Completely.
Well, yeah, I think that's like the key point of that.
I think way before you and I even met, it was before I was even a little marketing coordinator. And I don't think they called them BDRs back in the day. I think we were qualification telemarketers.
Yep.
And I had a boss who told me, I'm going to make you do this for 9 months. You're going to hate it, but it's going to teach you something that you're going to carry with you your entire career. And he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
It was stop talking, listen to somebody's pain points, and then tell them how you can help solve that. And that is what marries sales and marketing. And I have carried that with me through my whole career,
I love that. And look at you now.
I know.
So what is the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
Put me on LinkedIn. I have a very unique last name. My husband is actually 100% Greek. And when his father was born, the Americanized version of his last name is Zaemes. His last name was misspelled. There is no one else except for the people that I'm related to who have my last name. So I am very, very, very easy to find on LinkedIn, and I will connect with anyone. I love LinkedIn and I love connecting and I love networking that way.
Well, I tell you, you're a total gem that way. You and I communicate a lot on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, that is the best place as well. It's Lori Sartorius Jones.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.